Well, I originally thought that I was going to make this video so that I could talk about Epictetus, because lately I've been working through Epictetus's discourses, which have been proving to be both incredibly instructive and quite interesting, but also quite difficult and um, hard to navigate. But I couldn't make the video without first trying to think about why am I talking about Epictetus in the first place. And I guess the simple answer is I'm talking or reading Epictetus for myself, and I wanted to talk about Epictetus because I'm sick. I'm chronically ill, and I've been sick for over a year and a half now, or almost a year and a half now. I can't even think. And in the course of being sick, in the course of having a chronic illness, I've had to deal with an immense amount of pain, and not only physical pain, which I thought there were only maybe 3 kinds of physical pain. As it turns out, there are many different kinds of physical pain. There's all kinds of flavors and varieties and shades of pain that I became initiated into, and that does a thing to one's psyche. That does a thing to your personality. That does a thing to your outlook on life. It certainly does a thing to you when, because you're in so much pain and because of all of the other things that the illness is doing, like I couldn't eat properly, I couldn't absorb nutrients properly, I still probably can't, although I'm on a new medication, so hopefully that's working. Um, I had immense amounts of brain fog. I couldn't think clearly. I couldn't read. I couldn't reason with others or talk with others with any amount of clarity. I would always look for words that I knew were perfectly reasonable to proceed to, but I couldn't think of them at all. And that took a toll on me because I really value my own capacity to reason. I value my own capacity for clarity of vision. And I know that other people, including my own partner, my fiance, values that in me. And of course, she said that she would still value me just for my heart and not for my mind, but she values me partly for my mind. She does say that that was the thing that made her fall in love with me initially. And so I couldn't sit here and talk about Epictetus and about why I'd be reading this old slave Stoic turned philosopher Stoic, right? Without really thinking about why am I going towards Stoicism at this time. After almost a year and a half of being sick, why would I be reading Stoicism? Well, I guess it might be obvious. I mean, to anybody who knows just a little bit about Stoicism, it seems like a perfectly valid philosophy if you're dealing with external circumstances that you can't fully control, and you need some kind of orientation for that. The mistake that I've been making for the past still year and a half now is that I've been thinking that my body could be in my control. And even though I was introduced to Stoicism 10 years ago when I was 18, 19, and I listened to the Enchiridion, the audiobook of the Enchiridion, over and over again just to kind of really get the ideas in, and I found that really soothing and really kind of instructive and a good way to study. I was oriented towards a lot of the basic ideas of Stoicism, particularly the most famous idea in it, which is the dichotomy of control, that there are some things within our control and that there are some things without of our control. And the things that are not in our control, that are without of our control, are a bit more numerous than we think. And Epictetus is very clear in the first chapter of the Enchiridion, if you can call it a chapter at all, is that the body is one of the things that is not really within our control. We don't have a say in whether or not we will be healthy. We don't have a say on whether or not our body is going to act well or be well or not. We may have influence on the body. That's not to say that we shouldn't take any action towards our health. That doesn't mean that we should be entirely indifferent. And indeed, health is categorized, as I've learned more recently, health is categorized as a preferred indifferent. It's something that we can't control, because no matter how much one may take supplements and eat an anti-inflammatory diet, because my disease happens to be related to inflammation, no matter how many things we may do in the efforts to become healthy or to remedy our situation, there is still the possibility that you will not be healthy, that we will not be healthy. We know of many people who pursue supposedly healthy lifestyles, or they pursue lifestyles in the name of health, and yet they die, right? We know of people who pursue unhealthy lifestyles. They smoke, they drink, they have 12 cans of Diet Coke every day, whatever the case is, and yet they're living to be 80, 90 years old, right? The classic case of the grandpa who smoked for all of his life and never got lung cancer. There's no way of controlling this. And so throughout the past year and a half, I've thought through various different means that I could control my body, that my health was ultimately something that I could control if only I just figured it out, if only I just found the key, the one thing, or the right explanation for why my body has done what it's done. Excuse me. That I would become healthy, right? If I could just figure out that one thing. And everybody who's into health, who deals with health problems, and they start getting a little bit better, feel like they've figured it out, right? And I felt that way for a time, because I had a couple of months there where I felt quite healthy, and I went through a flare during August of last year. Actually, not of last year, of the year before now. That's how long it's been. It was August of 2024. I went through a flare, and then I started taking some supplements, and those supplements got rid of my symptoms, and I thought, oh, great, I'm fixed. No, I was not fixed. The disease was still there. I just wasn't aware of it, because the symptoms had gone away. But the disease itself was still present. And then in April of last year, I got sick with the flu, I think, and I began to experience my symptoms again. And so it didn't matter, and I thought that those supplements were the answer, right? And now that I talk to other people who are extremely health conscious, and they're health oriented, they're natural, they're drinking juices, they're taking supplements, they're eating beef organs, they're doing all kinds of things, which I'm not against, but they think that they have the answer. And when I took those supplements originally, I thought I had the answer. It's like, you got to take these supplements, they're great. But then the illness comes back, right? Because of one thing or another that is beyond our control, right? And so I was running under the delusion, even to the point of thinking that I could train my will to manifest health, right? That I could pray and ask for health, even though that's not an invalid thing to do. It's not wrong or irrational to pray for health if you are religious. It's not irrational in the same way to want health or to desire health or to ask for health. But if you stake your inner well-being, this is the thing, if you stake your inner well-being on whether or not your body is going to be healthy, on whether or not you're going to experience pain, or I should say, if I stake my own sense of well-being internally, my own peace, my own tranquility, on whether or not I'm going to experience pain today, or tomorrow, or the next day, or whether or not I'm going to have to cancel a class because I'm in too much pain in the morning and I can't teach, I can't be in pain to that degree and teach critical thinking at the same time. If I stake my well-being on these things, I'm going to suffer. But I realized now, having reminded myself of Epictetus, reading his discourses, listening to the Enchiridion again, that I was missing just the basic facts of life, that health and the body are not really things that we can guarantee are within our control. It's not something that reason can guarantee, and that's a key Stoic idea, is that we should not stake our sense of well-being on things that reason cannot guarantee to be so. And that means that I can't guarantee, I cannot stake my well-being, my sense of tranquility, on whether or not I'm going to be in pain, on whether or not the medication that I'm taking is going to work all the time. Because I know from other people who have what I have that they could take the same medication for years and then one day that medication stops working and they have to move on to a different one and they experience their pain again. And so that's the risk that we run. That's the risk that I'm running. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that I've been through so much pain. I've been through so much disorientation and confusion and self-shaming and self-disgust because of what my body's had to endure, that I became ignorant of the facts of life. And it required a timely reminder of just what exactly is in our control and not, and how can we reorient the mind. Not in any kind of occult sense or esoteric sense or woo-woo, nothing like that even. Just a simple, not even barely philosophical in the old sense of a way of life, not Kant or Nietzsche or anything like that. In a basic sense, how can we reorient reason to say, I understand that this is within my control and this is not within my control. And I cannot stake what is my own sense of peace, my own sense of tranquility, my own sense of well-being on the things that I cannot control. And I'm sorry to say, but we cannot control our bodies. So hopefully I'll actually get to talk about Epictetus in a different video, since I can see I've been talking for 12 minutes now just about being sick, but I don't know. Maybe this will be helpful for somebody else. Maybe this will just be a good thing to see for somebody else who's dealing with a chronic illness. Maybe this will provide some solace for you. I hope so. Be well, and remember the dichotomy of control. Take care.